Hey, friends and fiends of the pod, this is your host, Nate Wyckoff, inviting you to listen to this rebroadcast of a classic episode while we work hard to get brand new episodes out your way directly into your earballs and your eyeballs. Remember, you can listen to classic episodes at cultandclassicfilms.com as well as watch us at youtube.com/@cultandclassicfilms. You can also go to cultandclassicfilms.com and our shop and buy exclusive cult movies and collector's editions directly from us on high definition Blu-ray. You can also join us on Patreon at patreon.com/cultandclassicfilms so you can get those exclusive cult movies delivered to you every month at a deep discount. Plus, you help us run and money goes directly to the filmmakers responsible. So you are supporting independent film. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Cult and Classic.
Welcome, fiends of the pod, to another episode of Cult and Classic Films podcast, the podcast where we usually bring you two thematically linked films, one mainstream and one cult, and talk about them both. This, however, is one of our infamous, famous, whatever you want to call it. I think it depends on who's listening. One-off episodes, and it is an episode that I like to call the horrific Christmas in July. I said it a little funny there because it's a play on words. Not only is this a horrifying Christmas in July special that we will be talking about, but it is also riffed by the good folks at RIFFTRAX. So this is, I saw this last year and was like, I have to force this upon our beloved panelists because it is banana sandwich bonkers. I'm your host, Nate Wyckoff, film critic and comedian, of course. And with us today, we also have Tad Mastroianni. How you doing, Tad?
I'm starting to wonder how long I can have this forced on me before it becomes assault.
Yeah, I mean, it depends what state you're in, I guess.
Oh, I'm fucked up.
Good luck proving it. And we also have with us Mandy Longley. How are you doing, Mandy?
I'm not sure what season it is. It feels just like Christmas, but it is a billion degrees in New England right now.
Yeah, it's we're having some record heat out here as well. I mean, it's always hot here in Palm Springs area, but we've been battling between 108 and 116 the past few days.
But so it's a dry heat, right?
It is a dry heat. It is true. It is,
and
you know what? It makes a difference.
It is like a swimming pool.
Yeah, and it has been nothing but rain.
Yeah,
when it's not
we've had rain for
hot.
We've had rain for like 3 weeks, and then they're like, "Oh, now we'll stop raining, but we'll make it 1,000,000 degrees." So
yeah, we'll make it a fucking sweaty asshole.
Yeah.
You know, why not?
It's very swassy for sure.
Swass. Oof, hitting it hard today. Well, I'll tell you this. We will have there are lots of change of scenery moments that you get with this week's film, which is 1981's New Zealand television special, The Monsters Christmas. This movie, I'm gonna go in and try and give you the plot. It's basically Lord of the Rings, but instead of a group trying to bring a ring of power and throw it into a volcano, a group sends a small child to rescue their voices from the inside of a volcano. Otherwise, there are a shocking number of parallels, and of course, this is long before Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, which was also filmed in New Zealand. But I'm guessing he had seen this, especially knowing that he made the bizarre special effects film Bad Taste, as well as his entire discography. But yeah, this is some banana sandwich crazy crap, and I want to get into it. There's like this, I guess you could call it it's not really a framing story. It's just this girl is reading a picture book as she goes to sleep at night, presumably on Christmas Eve. I don't know exactly how New Zealanders, how their Christmas is the same or different than ours here in the US. It essentially seems very similar, right? Like you wake up on Christmas morning and you open presents from under a Christmas tree. In this case, though, she falls asleep with her teddy bear reading The Monsters Christmas. It seems to be a real picture book of some kind where a bunch of monsters have a singing competition or something, and a witch they make fun of a witch because she sounds terrible, and so she steals their voices, and in response they steal her wand so she can't use her powers. And that's the story. And this little girl reads it and falls asleep, and then when she wakes up in the middle of the night expecting Saint Nicholas to be delivering presents, she finds one of the monsters in her living room, which we will touch on these monsters a lot, I think, because there's a lot to talk about. And then she ends up befriending this monster, and he leads her to like the next step of the journey where she meets another monster, and then the next step where she meets another one, and eventually she winds up in the witch's place and rescues the voices, and then they all become a happy family, which is perhaps a slight difference from Lord of the Rings, but that's it. Otherwise, this is the Lord of the Rings. Okay. I can guarantee that none of our panelists had seen this before I forced it upon them. As I mentioned in the intro, though, this is the RIFFTRAX version that we watched here today. It is uncut from the original transfer, I guess you would call it. Although uncut, I'm wondering what was left on the cutting room floor, because there are some insane moments here that do not have any explanation. But be that as it may, the film has been riffed by RIFFTRAX main group, of course, Mike Nelson, Bill Corbett, and Kevin Murphy, written by them and their talented writers. Very funny. I found it a delight. I always love RIFFTRAX, and I think it makes a movie like this, which has what I will kindly call audio problems. It makes it much more watchable. By audio problems, I mean the little girl's voice is so high pitched and ADR'd that the Casio keyboard soundtrack is so loud and piercing that it's just kind of a cacophony of screeches whenever there's any sort of dialogue happening. And the monsters don't speak until the very end, so they essentially just grunt, groan, and shuffle about. And we just get a lot of really unpleasant sounds. And half the time the sound effects, this is not a joke, they sound like diarrhea, like actual, like bubbly, gurgly, bizarre, like why you would choose these sound effects, I do not know. I really
Oh,
don't.
good. It wasn't just me.
No, it sounds.
I was like, is this a joke? Is this something that they spliced in?
No, it's literally in the original feature. And it's just like, I mean, not to be graphic, but like like these really horrifying gurgle sounds.
Oh no, not the potty mouth.
It is. So yes. So okay. I'm just
I
gonna
thought it was
break
just
in.
like being old and not being able to understand the kid. I was like,
No,
what?
well, first off, of course,
Where are the subtitles? I have no idea what's happening right now.
listeners know that we are based in the U.S. and we are all U.S. natives, and so we have a particular way of speaking in English. And this film has New Zealand cast, and there's only really two people until the monsters at the end who don't speak. They just sing us Silent Night, which we'll talk about. The only ones that speak are the witch and the little girl. The witch is called Witch, and the little girl is called Girl. So kudos to that.
Great, easy to remember.
Yeah, and they speak, but they have, especially the little girl has like a heavy Kiwi accent, like very, very, and it's a very, I think it's actually a very pretty accent, but it's sort of sing-songy, like it has a very particular melodic up and down, and it makes it very hard to follow when you're competing with the soundtrack. It's like they have this weird resonance with one another that makes it like, I'm like, I see lips moving, but it's also ADR, so sometimes the lips aren't moving and I'm still hearing stuff. Also, this is a musical, but only twice. There are two songs in this, I believe, and they're both insane. They're just both insane. I'll talk about them in a moment, but I want to hear what you guys have to say. Mandy, what were you expecting from this holiday feature, and what did you come away with after watching The Monsters Christmas?
I think I was expecting something a little bit more like The Nightmare Before Christmas. Maybe. And then what we got was what felt like a story that had been like written by a group of third graders after someone had told them the story of Lord of the Rings, kind of like you said. and then also said we're writing a Christmas story. Like they were given some prompts, and then they like each wrote a couple sentences of a story, and it got past the next kid. And like they wrote a couple sentences, and so
That is
it is
very adept.
in batshit insane. There are like costume changes that are never explained. You have
Yes.
no idea like where these clothes came from or why that's happening. The magic system, I mean, like, why even bother explaining that? Like it doesn't, it's from a
I don't
kid's
even
book,
know.
so I guess
I'm not
it
even
doesn't
sure
even,
there's any
it
magic.
doesn't
Yeah, I mean,
matter.
really.
But yeah, like they turn a bad guy. I don't even know if he's a bad guy. Like his tail yellow, and then they like shoot it off or something.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, what? Like, does she know what she's doing? Or was that planned? Was that like she thought it would be hilarious to do, or was that just an accident because she pointed
Yeah, she
the
makes a
magic wand at
face, but then
someone,
they're sort
right?
of
Like,
delighted about it. Yeah, like so.
yeah. So I don't know. This movie made me feel old. I'm pretty sure that my kid would have absolutely loved it though, because he loves super creepy, weird stuff. And the monsters weren't like too scary. And it does not matter to little kids if the plot makes any sense at all.
True.
The exercise room hijinks would have had any little kid cracking up. So like I understand like kind of why this was made and how it was made and whatever. And like, but wow,
Yeah, it's sort of this
it
is
was a
one of those
wild trip.
movies. This is one of those movies where when you see pictures, like when you actually see screenshots, you're like, what nightmare came to life? Because it is not just like mildly upsetting. It's like the, the 1930s silent, Alice in Wonderlandy, like talking animals where they just build giant robot, not robots, giant animal heads and stick them on people and like, and
The
just
backwards like
yeah.
insect thing.
So James Wan clearly ripped off the insect monster here with Malignant, which if you're curious our opinions on it, go listen to my my mini episode review when it came out, which I hate it. Anyway, he totally stole it from this, right? Like the insect monster is actually a person standing backwards, so his legs bend backwards and he uses his little like pincery claws behind him. I think it's a great touch. I would say it's probably would have been a little more effective had they had some sort of chest plate on him, because he has like a back carapace with like, like folded wings kind of thing. And it looks fantastic, but every once in a while, and they do change it. Like there's a couple of scenes that look mildly dangerous where they had him, the person in the suit facing forward, which makes sense. But you can only tell if you look at his legs really, because, they either bend one way or the other. But it was really cool. And the insect monster, I mean, I guess we just go over the whole cast, right? There's Girl, who is the heroine, right? There's Mountain Monster, which is the first one she meets, which we'll talk about. Then there are the witch. Nasty is the monster that is like her manservant. And we have
Horse monster and mud monster.
Mud monster, yes. That's correct. And then there's also a very brief scene of there's a TV witch who's teaching aerobics on a
witch
TV.
Witch
aerobics, that's right. So that's it. That's our whole cast. And each monster is literally like a nightmare. But it's interesting you said that, because I don't think they're creepy probably to kids probably that much. But for something about them,
like the whole like theme, I don't know, theme, like the whole just like general vibe of the movie is like very friendly. Like she's just like not scared of them ever.
Right.
She's just like,
ever.
oh hey, I know your story. She's like, I love this book. I'm gonna read it to my teddy bear. And then a monster randomly shows up in her living room. She's like, oh, hey monster, who has a giant weepy eye of goo.
Oh
like,
God, it's so gross. It's so crazy.
You're so sad, but let me help you feel better, and I'll go on a random adventure with you, and it'll be totally fine. Like,
and that's the tone of the voice
as well
the whole time. Yeah. And the movie, both. You're totally right. She's not afraid, and which is cute. And the monster, you mentioned the eye. So the monster, the costume design is kind of epic. Like it's like someone looked at the original Doctor Who series, and was like, oh, we're gonna make this one step more towards realism, which means it's creepy. It's like it's it's cosplay with like one or two real sort of fleshy elements that makes it upsetting. Specifically, she makes the mountain monster, which I don't know why exactly it's called a mountain monster, except he's huge and the top of his head spews smoke like a volcano the whole time, like just forever. And he's one eye, and it looks like maybe they use some sort of like yellow rubber circular like Brillo pad, like a yellow I don't even know what you would call it. Like it looks like a horse brush or something that's like these rubber knobs all
Rubber
over it.
nubby things, and they're very symmetric. Like it was definitely something manufactured
and it
in
pulses.
like perfect circles. Yeah.
Yeah, it pulses, and then he has an eye in the middle of that eye that pops out and comes back in. Like for anyone who's seen From Beyond, with where the pineal gland comes out of the forehead when they become like this evil advanced creature, and like it's like that, it comes out on a stalk. And when, as you said, the first time she sees the monster, she makes fun of him because he can't speak, because she knows from her storybook that the witch stole their voices. And then he starts to cry, and it is green viscous liquid that just oozes out of the bottom of this weird yellow eye. It's truly upsetting. It reminded me a lot of the creature in a movie which we all love here, and why Mary Warrenov, Full Moon, releasing. Why can I not think of that name? Tad, do you remember? I'm blanking here. The film with Mary Warrenov where the TV, intergalactic TV, comes up. Anyway, it'll come to me and we'll talk about it.
It's not a full moon video, is it?
It is. It's like not
And I know
Monster
exactly
Vision.
what
I
you're
of course
talking
know what
about.
Monster Vision.
I mean,
Anyway,
Oh,
I
that's what I
also-
was thinking. It was Monster
I also
Vision.
can't
Never
think of it,
mind.
but we like covered it on this, haven't we?
we did, and it was fantastic. And this is
Yes.
this movie, The Monsters Christmas. I watched it a second time directly before recording this podcast. It has melted my brain because it's almost I call it a non-verbal movie, because the dialogue doesn't matter. It occurs, but not only did I not understand half of it, but it's really irrelevant, because it's sort of like everyone involved except for the kid seems like they may be a circus performer, like they might actually be some sort of clown or contortionist or something, especially the person in the nasty monster suit, the helper of the witch. And so I think of all the monsters, because we talked about Mountain Monster. He has light up belly. He has this big, giant, rubbery mouth with teeth, this weepy eye, this smoking thing on his head, unclear limbs, arms. It's at some point are unclear. But we also have the forest monster, which is like a big insect, sort of like a praying mantis. Then we have the mud monsters, which, as RIFFTRAX says, looks like a tandem. I think they called it tandem poo. They look like two piles of excrement that are attached at the base.
And that's not an unkind description.
No, it isn't. It's really accurate. And I saw them as like the final form of Diglett from Pokemon, like this really upsetting mound of like brown, like brownness. And when they get close, they have like, they're people's faces in this one. The other monsters, you can't see human faces, but people's faces, but they have like appliques on them, so they're kind of purpley and like bulgy, and it's just, and their noses are big and bulbous, and they inflate and deflate. It's really spooky. And I can't, but Nasty is the most insane, because Nasty is the villain. He's the villain's helper, rather. He is the Golem of this. He's Schmeagol all the way. He literally, like, Peter Jackson could not have not seen this movie, because Golem is this creature. He like moves around like on all fours, like gliding, hangs from trees, skulks around rocks. The difference being is that he is this mostly black. He looks like he's a creature that crawled out of an oil slick, right? He's mostly black, a little bit of brown tones, but his face, I think at one point RIFFTRAX called him a like melted pig rat, which is kind of appropriate because he has this like snout that goes off his face, sort of like the center tendril of Man-Thing's face from Marvel Comics.
I
And
think
then
they also made a circumcision joke.
yes,
as
it
well.
he had his nose circumcised. Yes, it very much seriously, it is upsetting because you see the human eyes, but like he has whiskers, but he's also very melted looking.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
and as you said, he has a tail which girl blows away. First she shocks him and his whole tail and butt become like bright yellow, and then she shoots him again and the tail falls off and his butt is bright yellow and tailless for the rest of the movie. So I can only assume that that's some sort of horrible scar burning that's is really weird. In case you haven't picked it up at this point,
magic burn. Yeah.
this movie's a little weird. Yeah. So okay, so those are the monsters.
Yeah, his like
just-
the texture of his like nose facing is almost like seaweed.
yes,
Like
it's
kelpy,
very
like wet, but like
wet.
semi-translucent, and it has like that thickness and like folds, kind of like they just like put seaweed over his
yeah. Everything is just all around.
nose.
Terror Vision. That's the name. Damn it. Terror Vision is the movie I was thinking about, which is a delightful
You said
movie.
that. Not
No,
only
I
did
said-
you say that, but I said,
I said
"Oh,
Monster
Terror
Vision.
Vision."
And Monster Vision
Terror
is, of course,
Whatever.
was Joe Bob Briggs' television show on TNT. Go watch. Joe Bob
We were
Briggs'
halfway
show.
there.
We were anyway. And I know our listeners were like, "You idiot! It's blah blah blah." Totally fair, totally valid. But we're back on track.
Do you
now.
not even remember the movies that you watched?
It doesn't matter.
listeners,
I don't care about the title. I care about how I felt after watching it.
Yeah, so we have watched. I mean, we've talked about more, but we have watched several hundred movies at this point for this podcast, listeners. That's just for this podcast. So
I can't remember 5 minutes ago.
sure, exactly. That is just the reality.
That too.
So anyway, okay, Tad, what were you expecting from the Monsters Christmas, and what did you come away with?
I was expecting Christmas.
There's
I got
zero
monsters.
Christmas.
I got barely any Christmas, but I did get monsters, and I also got no. Nathan, I don't have enough Vicodin in my life to watch movies like this. Okay, like I am. I'm in serious pain right now. For any of our listeners, I'm in serious pain right now. I have a serious back spasm. I am doing this out of the kindness of my heart for Nathan because I love him so much. But I can tell you that when you're in some serious pain and you're trying to pay attention to a movie and it's this batshit, sorry, gone. I do remember images. I do remember some of the things you guys are talking about. Well, what I can tell you right now is that I walked away going, what the fuck did I just watch? And how many times probably on this podcast have I said, what the fuck did I just watch? This is one of those where I that Christmas special that we did like, what, 2 years ago, where it was just the animated one. Like what was
Cosmic,
it? The psychedelic Cosmic Christmas.
I love
one
that
was
one. Yeah.
more cohesive.
Oh,
that
sure.
one was more cohesive than this. And I
Well,
thought
you're gonna
that one
say,
was
like,
kind of
the
a little bit
Santa
out there.
3000. Whatever that
Oh
was.
yeah, Santa. Yeah, you know what?
I can't get into
Listeners,
I can't get in the spirit of this in the middle of
Um,
July. Okay, like
so-
my face is melting, and they're trying to show me Christmas trees. I can't do it.
So to be fair, this
But
as
wouldn't that
noted.
be like, isn't this a perfect time to watch a Christmas movie from the Southern Hemisphere? I mean, we think like White Christmas, we're from the Northern Hemisphere.
Yeah,
It's
there's
like a
definitely no
winter thing
snow.
and stuff, but like Southern Hemisphere, like this would be very
Okay,
much
Not
well,
only
the
Well,
weather.
if Nathan's
right?
willing to fly me to New Zealand just to watch this movie, I will take that.
so
but,
so it's interesting that you said that you injured your back this week because I also did, and today's the first day with no hydrocodone, so I'm feeling it. And sitting in this chair is tough. And I don't know what it says. I think it says more to our age than anything else. But this movie, not only is it not like there's a lot of weird Christmas movies that don't ever have any sort of hold on our imaginations because they're not they don't ring Christmas. Like the one that skirts the line that everybody talks about, of course, Die Hard. Like it sort of skirts the line. Everything looks Christmas. It opens with a Christmas theme. So like you kind of even feel a little bit more Christmas with that. But like this movie, no Christmas. There's a Christmas tree at the beginning. It is called The Monsters Christmas, and then they are back. The girl
Carries
is
a
back.
Christmas stocking.
She
That's her
does.
bag.
She carries the Christmas stocking throughout the movie. And she also, it ends with a triumphant singing of Silent Night, which, as RIFFTRAX performers pointed out, is weird that monsters are Christian, I guess, in this universe. I also think it's probably one of the few songs that they actually could get.
So somewhat ironic that they were singing about something silent when they just got their voices back.
I
and
know.
they'd been silenced, and then
Yes,
they sang. I just, yeah.
totally. I thought the same
Interesting
thing.
choice.
And not only is it not Christmas, but as we stated several times, it's in New Zealand, so they make amazing use of the natural features. Like the forest looks stunning. The forest of, like, right out of Lord of the Rings. And then they're in caves a lot, which are like real caves, I believe, for the most part. And then they're actually like at one point in some sort of disgusting, smoky, gurgling bog with mud, which, by the way,
The
don't
fog of eternal
continually.
stench,
Yes, do
like
not
the real
continue.
one.
Yes, do not continually zoom in on erupting brown mud holes, because it looked, to speak again of the soundtrack sounding like diarrhea, at several moments in this movie, it looked like literal diarrhea. Like somebody,
It was.
I mean, it looked
It
like
was,
somebody filmed the inside of a toilet bowl. It
it
was
was talking diarrhea, and best part is during that scene, I don't think I actually understood a thing it
not a
was trying to
single
say.
thing. No, as you
Not one
said, it's a
word
sing.
made sense.
They're giving the girl instructions on how she can free the monster's voices once she finds them, and she tells them, and it also tells her how to find them in the witch's like home. And like it says it like every time the holes open up with bubbles, it speaks, but the
Says
voice
it in
is this.
farts.
It does.
Like
And
imagine like
yeah.
burping the alphabet, except instead you're giving someone complex instructions with your farts.
Yeah, and like
That
there's,
is.
and it's
So
even
this was
more.
100%, like I said, written by
Yes,
a third grade classroom.
and
This
it's so hard to
section was like
understand.
3 or 4 boys in a row.
It's
Like,
so hard to understand because it's like just air escaping a hole. It's like go to the beam,
So
and
Nate,
it's upsetting.
Nate, you know what? You know what? This just reminds me. This is something that we should probably send over to Miyazaki at FromSoft and tell him this should be the narrative of your next Soulsborne game, because this exactly follows the usually the narrative structure of most of those FromSoft games, where it's like walk to thing, get a little bit of piece of something in the ground talks to me, and then I wander off, and hours later I guess I go to something else.
Totally. And let's just throw a shout out to our video game fans out there that I mean, I love FromSoft, but I will say that claiming George R.R. Martin writing the story for
What, Elden Ring?
Elden Ring is
Okay,
the
listen,
most
listen.
hilarious.
No,
Like
no, no,
there's
no,
just stop.
Hold on, listen. I've been playing Elden Ring. I have been doing it for about 250 hours now, and what I can tell you is that the only thing that George R.R. Martin actually had to anything to do with whatsoever is any of the incest narratives that are inside the game. I guarantee that's most of his contribution, and after that, they just ran with whatever.
Yeah, no,
just
you know
like
what?
general duration. Like, doesn't really matter what happens. This is gonna last like 20 times longer than anyone really can pay attention to.
Oh yeah, all I need to know is, did a brother and sister have sex to make this fantasy world seem real? Yeah, so that's okay. Anyway, back to the monsters, back to some real entertainment value, quality writing. The Monsters Christmas from 1981. So here's the deal, guys and gals and non-binaries and everyone in between and beyond. The Monsters Christmas is crazy. The amount of, like, the locations are wild. It looks like, I mean, just Lord of the Rings sets before Lord of the Rings. Like, we have cracked earth with steam spewing out of it. We have like geysers. We have the gurgling mud swamp. We have several different caves, lush forests, beautiful verdant fields of like wildflowers and some sort of wheat. And we, but to get us there, we have long scenes of the little girl saying goodbye to monsters and receding into the distance while several times turning around to wave back at the monsters and say goodbye once again.
We haven't even talked about her monster costume.
No, we have not. Or the costume changes in general. The first costume change occurs without any this is one where I'm like, did they cut something? Because it doesn't make any sense. We haven't even talked about, she's going to get the monsters' voices back, but for some reason, she also needs to get the witch's scepter, which the monsters stole from the witch in retaliation. And so she gets the witch's wand, essentially this big scepter. And when they get it, the next scene, the mountain monster is hungry, I guess. And the little girl is in a nurse's costume, like a Swedish, I mean, I guess it's New Zealand, but like a Swedish sort of Sound of Music nurse's costume, for no discernible, like it's not addressed. And then after that, she no longer has that outfit on. I don't really understand. I guess I don't need to, but it also is the scene where we first learn what monsters eat, which is pictures. And any picture, apparently it doesn't matter what the picture is of. It eats a picture of a flower out of a magazine, and then the little girl draws several other flowers and gives it to them. But then later the witch draws, I don't know, like a giant, is it a giant acorn with like holly on top of it? I don't know what the drawing is supposed to be. But anyway, and that's apparently what monsters eat, is pictures of things. Okay. Guess I'm not gonna ask questions about that. The other costume change occurs in several stages, which is the forest monster and then the mud monsters giving her bits of costume to make her look like a monster. Don't really know why she has to look like a monster to go into the witch's home, knowing that the witch hates monsters. Don't really understand that. But her costume is also kind of wildly cool. Like, these costumes are actually really, people put effort into these, and it kind of shows.
Wants that costume. Like,
seriously,
100%.
her costume,
she's like a prickly pear avocado monster.
It's an avocado COVID virus. Like,
yes.
It's an avocado COVID virus because it's a round thing with like this slice cut out of the front, and it's got like this green pink inside, like an avocado or a guava fruit, and then the outside has all these spines on it with like tufts of feather at the end. So it's very viral. Sort of like, yeah, it looks like if you've been into a Starbucks where they have like those prints of like drawings or pictures of like cocoa beans like being roasted, it's very much that. It's like it's a viral fruit of some kind, or berry. And then and that's what the forest creature gives her. Although do we even see the forest monster give her this, or does she just appear in it in the next scene? I don't really.
It's like, unclear. She just kind of appeared, like he is also like a spider.
Yeah, he's got like spider webs. He wraps the nasty in the spider webs.
So they're like in his little area with the spider webs, and suddenly she's in this monster costume, and they're kind of having a conversation.
And then she waves goodbye and walks off into the distance. And then for the mud monsters, they give her a helmet, a headpiece that matches the outfit. So all of a sudden she's fully monstered out. At which point she goes to meet the witch and becomes the witch's slave, which, you know, that's a thing, I guess. We need to talk about, you mentioned it, Mandy, the witch's gym, which is where the finale takes place.
I felt personally attacked, not at all, because that looks like my basement.
I mean, it literally
exercising.
It's got an old like 1980s, I mean it is 1980s, but like a 1970s television with the workout, the TV witch, as is credited, the workout witch, which by the way is played by actress Jane Waddell, who is the only person that is notable actor wise in this, and she's just on the TV screen for a little bit. We get lots of uncomfortable groans from the witch, which RIFFTRAX makes fun of, but she's trying to do like push-ups, and then she's doing like there's like a pommel horse and some really questionable balance beams and things in there, and
she's got a set of uneven bars.
She has a couple of like bench press barbells. It's very unclear why this whole thing is happening in a gym. I don't know. It's a gym, by the way, in a cave. It's literally in a cave. So I don't, again, understand that whole process. But I want to talk about, before we dive into the cave scene or the gym scene, I want to mention some of the questionable safety involved in the scenes of revolving around this. At one point at the end, the monster's voices are hidden in this giant hole that is elevated in the cave and has a big ladder that that girl has to climb up. And by the way, I wish that we were in an innocent place where I didn't have to instantly feel uncomfortable when there is an underage child climbing a ladder in a skirt. But we live in a world where movies are now suspect on every level. Filmmakers are suspect on every level. And frankly, we should be, because we have seen people but it's weird. I'm like, you don't need to film this little girl climbing a ladder that's like 100 feet in the air for like 5 minutes. It was weird. I didn't like it. And again, I wish that I didn't have to feel that way, but I feel like the climate of the world is clear enough now to me as a straight white man that we need to be aware of these things. That said, it seems dangerous that they had this little girl climb a ladder that is probably 30 feet in the air, I would say, at the top. And then to get to this cave, there are these big volcanic like washes, I guess you would call them, where it's like a bunch of shale and other rock that's all broken down. It makes these really deep, or rather steep, slippery rock slidey areas, right? It looks like chunky gravel that's at a very steep decline. And I don't know if it's natural or if they're from some sort of mining. I'm not sure, but whatever the case is, they have the four people in these three monster costumes, because remember, Mud Monster is two people. They have them essentially speeding down these hills, and they all legitimately fall several times, like, and roll and like really fall. And these costumes have to be fairly padded, but it's very weird, because I'm like, this is not something that someone who actually has like professional film setup would actually do. You would not send your cast members in awkward, clumsy costumes to tumble down what appears to literally be 100-foot like sloped landscape that is all loose rubble. And I noticed that at that point, the forest monster, who, you know, is in his costume backwards to make it look more insect-like, is actually forward in this one. You can tell his knees bend the right way. And I could not imagine the dead carcasses of stunt people that would have been littering the base of this mountain if they had people try and go down it backwards in monster costumes. But that was weird. And the girl climbing up the uncomfortably high, dangerous ladder was also weird. Okay, Mandy, you were going to say something about the gym scenes that the witch was in. I mean, because to me, the most insane moment in the gym is when Nasty, her helper, steals, which again, he catches the little girl behind a bush, like a shrub.
Oh, that was disturbing.
Super weird.
That was super disturbing. There was like clothes flying everywhere. And I know it's probably like just supposed to be him going through her Christmas stocking.
But this is what happens.
Also just sounds disgusting.
Exactly. This is what happens. She dies. She runs away from the monster, from this bad monster, Nasty, to behind a big shrub, and he leaps, clearly catching her behind it, and then all of her clothes go flying over the top of the rope, and then he like runs out with it's really weird. It was not well thought out, or it was well thought out and we need to call someone, because it was real weird. But anyway,
like, I was just assaulted, but I guess I still need to go get these monsters' voices.
Yeah, like I need to have somebody who can corroborate my story.
And she definitely looked like a kid who was like, oh, making a movie sounds really fun. And then like 3 hours into it was like, I hate this. Like the trudging, through all the scenes where it looks like a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old that you sent on like a huge quest.
Right. I think
miserable.
there's a
Yeah.
reason that things were ADR'd, and it wasn't just because they didn't have good sound equipment. It's because I
Yeah.
think half the time she's like, I don't want to do my line.
I don't want to do this.
So
I need a
so Nasty
snack. This
Nasty
costume's too
steals the set.
sweaty.
Oh, it's so true. The spray paint's making me dizzy. The
Mhm.
cost, so Nasty gets the scepter, but the top falls off, and it's like a plastic Christmas ornament
Because
that's
she
been,
got it at the dollar store.
yeah, that's been had glitter glued
Yeah.
on it. It falls off, so he doesn't know that. So he brings the scepter back to the witch, and she's like all excited. And then we get the second song, because the first one is just a little girl singing while she and the first mountain monster are just like running over hills and valleys in a field. I don't know. That's just it's a song. It's the general, like, we're going in an adventure song. The words could be radically different. It could be racist. I don't even know, because I couldn't understand a single bit of it. But the witch's song, I understood completely, because I believe the only lyrics are "Give it to me." Is that correct?
Yeah. First, there's a lot of exercise grunting, and then a
Yeah.
lot of her yelling, "Give it to me."
And
It was.
the monster Nasty is like, he's like hiding it behind him and like doing tickle fingers, because he has really long spooky fingers on like her palms when she goes to reach for it. It's a weirdly sexual song, because at the beginning she's like, "Give it to me," and she's all happy, like, "Come on, give it to me, like, give me the scepter." But I mean, it's the only words are "give it to me," and it's just over and over and "Give it to me, give it to me, give it to me," just the whole time. And then by the end, she is at a shrill screech and chasing him throughout the play. It's unsettling. It is yet
It's
another
very,
piece of
very unsettling.
terror in this
Yeah.
film. Yeah,
So my brain hates repetitive lyrics. So I tried to block that out as much as I could, and there
Yeah,
was
it's
nothing. It was like
no.
your eyeballs, my ear holes were like pinned open, like
It's like if
on
there was a
Clockwork Orange style. There was
yes,
no escaping it. You could
it's
not
like
listen away.
if there was a budget slim case dollar store DVD ripoff of Rocky Horror Picture Show, and this would have been the number that they wrote in, to pretend it's Touch Me, right? Because it's just like, it lacks the complexity. It literally is just give it to me, give it to me, give it to me over and over again at differing levels of manic. And but it has that same vibe. So it is definitely uncomfortable to sit through. Again, children would not, I think, have any sense of this, but as an adult watching it, I was like, this is something that is something. I don't even know how to describe it to a normal person. I think this movie in general, trying to describe this movie, which is a problem for a podcast, is very difficult, because the movie at its heart is like soft brain, like no complexity, just from A to Z for no reason to entertain the children. But the visuals are true nightmares, and the actual elements of each scene are occasionally disturbing. So as a whole package, it's just, you mentioned Nightmare Before Christmas. Nightmare Before Christmas has like this charming monsterishness, like an Addams Family, right, vibe. Like it's got this it's subversive, but in a way that we see coming and recognize it. Whereas the Monsters Christmas is the true it's the true subversion, which is, it is not telling people blatantly how disturbing it is. It is pretending it is not disturbing while giving us things that are truly horrifying, like a weeping, pulsating monster eye, farting soundtrack, wheezy, whispering, gassy, wispy voices coming out of brown stinkhole mud spewing like gas clouds. Monsters that are linked at like the bottom of their piles. They're just piles with faces.
They were attached at the butt.
They were attached to the butt.
I think is what RIFFTRAX said.
RIFFTRAX said, and I mean,
starting to see a theme here.
Yeah, lots of, and you know what? Now that I think about it, I mean, we're all big, I think, Peter Jackson fans here, and anybody who knows Peter Jackson's work beyond Lord of the Rings and King Kong and the Hobbit trilogy, knows that he is a twisted man with a very twisted sense of humor, as we know from Dead or Alive, Bad Taste, Meet the Feebles, his Muppet heroin orgy, violence-filled craziness, which I'm sure we'll talk about more at the podcast at some point. This speaks volumes about that. If this is what New Zealand children were consuming in the 80s, then I can absolutely see why I have an affinity for people who are creating from that place in the world, because this is crazy. This is a crazy, upsetting. It's like you had a bunch of different people making different movies. Like you gave the costumers, said, hey, it's a monster movie, and they were like, awesome, we're gonna make some weird shit. And then you gave the actors, like, this is gonna be like a goofy kids movie. And then you gave the cinematographer like hey, I want you to make this movie entirely out of B-roll for an antacid commercial. Like, like really, like that's what this movie is. Everyone thought they were doing something different, and they put it
Everyone was
together.
making a different movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
So
sure.
I totally love it. I absolutely love this movie. Without RIFFTRAX, I will say the sound would have done me in. It is just piercing and atonal and obnoxious, and I can put up with a lot. And it's just without RIFFTRAX, this would have been tough for me because of the sound. Now, that said, you could cut a kick-ass bootleg Super Sentai Power Rangers episode by redubbing this and recutting it, because the monsters feel right at home in that kind of, like Ultraman Keiju vibe. They would just be beautiful. That would be awesome. I would love for that to happen. Whoever owns the rights to the Monsters Christmas, reach out to us. We will make magic. But as it is, it instead is the weirdest Christmas short. As Tad said, this is even weirder than Cosmic Christmas, because Cosmic Christmas occurs on Christmas, and it is Christmas in appearance, and it is three space wise men coming to talk about Christmas. So there's Christmas throughout. The Monsters Christmas is no Christmas. It is almost an anti-Christmas movie, because if you were to watch it on Christmas, you would be spending at least 1 hour of time not thinking about Christmas. So maybe that was intentional.
Maybe this movie is the Antichrist.
The Antichristmas.
Oh my God.
I fully love the monster costumes. I think that they are, the first time I sat down to watch this,
the practical effects in this were really great. Like
they're too good.
Costumes.
Yeah, they're too good for the movie, because the movie
for the movie that was made.
Well, the movie would have
they were
benefited
perfect
from
for the movie that they thought they were making.
Right,
they
exactly.
made the costumes. Yeah.
Totally. I wish that something different was done with this. That said, I'm glad it exists. I'm glad we got to watch it. And the first time I watched it, I couldn't sleep, and it was the middle of the night, and the wind was howling here in the desert, and I turned it off 20 minutes in, because I'm like, every time a new character was introduced, it was just a new level of horror. I'm like, I don't want to know what kind of nightmares I'll be having. Like, it's bonkers. And so, in other words, here's my recommendation: go watch The Monsters Christmas. Buy it from RIFFTRAX. It's not expensive. I think it's $6 or $7, something like that. It's an hour long. You can download it right from them or view it on the rifftrax.com site, and support everyone that's doing the job of digging up these insane, truly wild, misguided, crazy film and television specials. So I'll recommend it. But I'm going to say this: if you cannot stand grading sound, you're gonna have a hard time with this. Don't try to watch the straight version. RIFFTRAX is your best bet, and even then, the beginning to me has the most obnoxious sounds of it. So if you can make it past the first 15 minutes, then I think you're okay. For the normies out there, quote unquote, do not watch this movie. There's no reason. You will just be upset. You'll be disturbed. You'll send us letters. You can feel free to send us letters. Cult and Classic. Actually, send it to info@cultandclassicfilms.com. But yeah, so there's me. It is a divisive recommendation on my part. Mandy, would you recommend the Monsters Christmas from 1981? And if so, why and to who?
I'm gonna go samesies with you. Like, if you like really weird stuff, if you like other RIFFTRAX, like I like
Yeah.
RIFFTRAX. I've been to see RIFFTRAX live. Like I really like it.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like I would say definitely it's a good one. I mean, they've got some good jokes in there. It's
Mhm.
always they're always entertaining. And this was just like super bizarre, as we've just spent the last hour discussing. So it was a
Yeah.
great one that they pulled to work on and do some jokes for. So
I'm always stunned
Yeah.
that there's more and more weird Christmas shorts that I've never seen every year that RiffTrax finds and uncovers. And it is, I mean, you're right. The ultimate recommendation, I think, is if you want to see something weird, watch The Monsters Christmas, because I just don't, it doesn't really fit into any sort of
But like
clear
if you
label.
struggled with quote unquote how weird like Nightmare Before Christmas was,
Oh
or
yeah,
like
you'll
Edward
never make it through
Scissorhands
this.
or something, like this is definitely not for you because this is like times 100.
And you're
So
also competing with on a technical level, right? Like,
yeah,
because Nightmare Before Christmas, those are all very professional,
Mhm.
excellently produced productions. This is not. This is, and it may have been
I
well
was gonna say,
produced.
are you competing with a cohesive narrative? Well, then you're fucked,
Well
buddy.
then, yeah. So I don't think that's the case. But Tad, would you recommend the Monsters Christmas from 1981? If so, why and to who?
No, I give Monsters Inc. an F negative, and nobody should ever watch this, and it should go right back into the pits of hell where it belongs.
Do you mean Monsters Inc. or do you mean the Monsters Christmas?
both. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Like
I think
the pits of someone's outhouse
so.
where
So
it came from.
so you know what, listener? I know we have some listeners in New Zealand. I'm very grateful to you. I'm happy to have you. If you know anything about this, or if this is somehow indicative of other New Zealand children's programming, write in and tell us. Info@cultandclassicfilms.com, or go to our Instagram or Facebook, Cult and Classic Films. Just let us know, because I need to know, like, should I be subscribing to New Zealand public television? Is that like what I need to do to find more things like this, or is this a one-off, and just everything else is normal? Because I don't I don't I don't know how this got on TV. It's really, really bonkers. Like, this is 1981. The 70s had ended. Granted,
Cocaine.
not long before, but yeah, like, I mean, it's as a, as again, as RiffTrax said about Star Wars holiday special, is there really enough uh pot in Modesto to make this happen? That is like, it is sort of this, like, I just don't know what to say about it anymore. We've talked, but it is truly, it's crazy. I can't impart to you enough how insane this is. But I will just leave you with this last image. As Mandy mentioned, the little girl is not afraid of the monsters, despite the first time she sees the mountain monster in her living room, he weeps crazy tears. And then when she asks him a question, he goes to the fireplace and brandishes a fire poker in the air at her for several minutes, which she takes to be a game of uh,
Pantomime.
yeah,
Charades.
charades,
Mhm.
and but really just looks like him threatening to beat her with a fire poker.
It absolutely
Um,
does.
and I don't. If you had
It
this movie on
absolutely
mute,
does.
and I'm last thing, I swear to God, the opening of this movie is the same opening of several Halloween and Friday the 13th sequels. It is a handy cam slowly approaching a window from a dark backyard and then entering the home without anyone knowing. It is literally stalker cam. It's a horror film. Like, it opens exactly like a horror film. And I swear, if you muted this, it would go from, like, Halloween 2 to Midsummer to Halloween 2 to whatever what whatever Edgar's next project is after Lighthouse. Like, it's crazy. It's weird. It doesn't know what it is. I don't know what it is, but I did really appreciate seeing the weird shit it had to do. So that's going to be it for us today on this episode of Cult and Classic Films for this horrific Christmas in July special. Thank you to our panelists. As always, I am your host and owner of Cult and Classic Films, Nate Wyckoff. Please follow us on social media, Instagram, Cult and Classic Films, and Facebook as well. And write any questions, requests. Hey, Nate, you talk too much, whatever. I don't care. Tell us, because it guides us in what we do on this podcast. And our email again is info@cultandclassicfilms.com. Go to our website, cultandclassicfilms.com, where you can subscribe to our forthcoming newsletter to get awesome news, reviews, extra weird stuff about movies that you've never heard of and those that you love. Thank you so much. Rate, review, all that jazz for our podcast, and check us out on YouTube as well, where we'll be posting the videos of our episodes. To play us out, as always, is the Chud with All About Evil. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to Cult and Classic Podcast. This podcast is important to me, but what's more important are the rights, privileges, and freedom from violence of everyone in this country and in this world. And that means supporting Black Lives Matter. If you'd like to make a donation, please go ahead and visit cultandclassicpodcast.com, where we have a list of places you can donate and help out. And please stay safe.